when we talk about space missions, you come up first with an idea. This is the mission concept. I want to go to this place. How do you get there though? Houston, we've got a problem. Those people sitting in the room with the headsets on, looking at all those displays, there is no training in the world that can prepare you. It's like being strapped to a bomb. You are going to feel so much shaking.
Hey there, and thank you for tuning in. We're excited to bring you another great conversation today. If you like the show and want to support us, please hit the subscribe button so we can keep bringing you great content week after week. And if you're feeling extra generous, give this video a like and share your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you so much. And now, let's get into it. Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today we welcome Janelle. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're a space engineer, formerly working at NASA, and now working for a private Japanese space company, iSpace.
That's correct.
Where you are a flight director and about to launch, or probably has already launched by the time this is being released, a new satellite, may I say so, or lunar lander.
Yeah. So we launched actually this second mission of ours on January 15th of this year, and it's currently transiting in space on its way to the moon very soon. Well, at least today, we are about a week or so from entering the moon's orbit, which is super exciting.
It's so strange for me to even talk about entering the moon's orbit in a week from now. Before we dive into that specific mission you're on and maybe many more things, I usually start our conversation by asking what brings you to Japan. But before we dive about what brings you to Japan, I think a bigger question is what got you interested in space and how did you end up at NASA?
It's a big question, but also it's not at the same time, because I feel like many people just in the world in general, there's always been this intrinsic interest in space because it's the unknown. You learn about black holes and your mind just goes, whoa, and things are getting sucked up here and what else might be out there? We wonder about, are we alone on this planet? Is there other life forms? What do these other planets look like? And so that was always there as a kid. And when I watched cartoons, especially one called Jimmy Neutron, if you grew up in my era.
I know Jimmy Neutron.
Jimmy Neutron just seems so cool because he was this kid who made his own talking dog assistant and he could build a rocket in his backyard and go on adventures with his friends. So I always was inspired or thought that that was a really cool thing, but I never thought it was a cool thing that I could actually do as a career because I had zero people in my life who called themselves a space engineer or an astronaut or anything related to space in general. So it was just as far-fetched as saying that, oh, I want to grow up to be a princess one day. It's it's cool, and who doesn't want to be a princess one day, but also you got to get real with yourself at some point. So it wasn't necessarily a dream that I ever aspired to be.
But the idea was there.
The idea was there in some ways, just like the idea of doing any kind of cool job, but I never thought or planned or had some kind of master thought that one day I could achieve this. And so I should be doing things in my life to set me up for that kind of success.
So what changed?
Well, the thing that changed is that I was kind of forced to make a decision after I got accepted into college. I went to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT. And while I was there, all I really knew is that I was super curious and I loved to learn. I still didn't have locked in a particular major or particular job or career to pursue. And so while I was there and I was speaking to my classmates, and especially the older classmates, I was just telling them, I love math and I think it'd be super cool to become a theoretical mathematician. Because I had done this whole project in high school about how we only learned one part of math and there's this non-Euclidean space and knot theory and all of these concepts that really made my mind so happy. But these upperclassmen said, I'm gonna be real with you. You're going to MIT. This is a school known for engineering. You should try engineering because engineers, one, make money. And two, you can do a lot of good in the world with engineering as well. I took that advice very seriously, and so I took a look at all the offerings, and there were a lot. You could be all sorts of an engineer. You could be a mechanical or an ocean engineer. You could be a chemical engineer, computer. But when I saw that aerospace engineering and that word space came about, I'm like, whoa, I mean, this one's kind of cool. Let me just go to this introductory course to see what it's all about. And I went to that class and I sat down, and I'll never forget it. On the first day, you know, when the professor's going over the syllabus and saying, oh, here's all the things we're going to learn. And he says part of what we will learn about is the history of spaceflight. And he shows these two astronauts fixing the Hubble telescope. And I remember looking up, because we were doing the projectors. It was old school.
Oh, yeah.
That school is old school. And we're looking at this image, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is real. Like, you could have a job doing this. And the professor just casually drops, that was me back in the day. I'm like, who? I'm looking around like, anyone else? Did that man just say that he's an astronaut? And he was, in fact, a retired astronaut. And from that moment on, it clicked to me that this like idea of wanting to be in space is not so far-fetched if this living and breathing person in the same room as me, who is saying he's going to be my professor for the next semester, is real. And if he's saying I can do it, then I must be able to do it.
So is going to space a dream now still?
Oh, that's a good question. My mom would say absolutely not. And I've had a lot of fun really realizing how many things we can do from Earth. In fact, I've never worked on any human-related missions. There is so much that you can do with remote sensing and robots in space. If the opportunity presented itself, which, I mean, how many people just have the opportunity to just go to space, landing in their lab? But if something like that ever happened, I would absolutely be open to it because it is cool, and it would be really interesting to see this overview effect that they talk about when astronauts get up there and they look down at our planet and just see how beautiful and vast it is, and without any borders drawn on it like the maps that we see. I do want to experience that, but we'll see.
we were actually just talking before recording about these commercial space flights that are now starting, like Blue Origin.
That's
or
right.
I think Virgin Atlantic also had like this similar thing.
Yeah.
And some people are going there. There's some former NASA engineers that have gone as part of this mission. So
We've even seen employees go on a SpaceX mission. That was like blew my mind because their lead spacecraft operator, which is generally the job that I do, was invited by a customer of theirs to join him on a trip to space.
So it's not just people who can afford that, but also people that are working on it that get the opportunity. So you're on the right track, and maybe the opportunity will present itself to you.
Perhaps.
But back to MIT.
Yeah.
So you start studying space engineering, and I guess when you think about working in space-related fields, especially in the US, NASA is just
The first thing
everyone thinks about. And even myself growing up in Europe, you know, everyone knows NASA and everyone talks about NASA. And I remember as a kid, I had the chance to travel to Florida and see Cape Canaveral.
Really? I've never been. You're before me.
Yeah. I was young, so I don't remember much, but it makes an impression on someone. So was this a natural progression for you to go from MIT to NASA, or was this also something that now SpaceX and so on, private companies are starting to develop a lot? But
I honestly, like I said, didn't know much about aerospace engineering when I chose it as a major. And I remember after declaring it at the end of my freshman year over the summertime, when I spent some time with my parents, they were asking me, oh, I mean, this is great. So what exactly are you going to do with that? And I was like, well, I don't know, work for NASA or something? They were like, all right. I was like, all right. And as I continued my education and as I took more classes, I realized that a specific NASA center kept on coming up in conversation from my professors.
okay,
They would talk about things like, imagine we're going to do a simulated landing on Mars, or we're doing one modeled off of this real mission called the Curiosity rover coming out of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Like this JPL place. Oh, I've never heard of this before. And like, oh, you know, we're going to send a probe to Saturn, or we're going to do something incredible in space. This Jet Propulsion Laboratory kept coming up in conversation. And I learned that it's one of NASA's many centers around the nation. And it's one of the centers that in particular specializes in space robotics. So when you do think of the Mars rovers, and when you do think of sending these satellites to places like Saturn or to Jupiter, these were done by JPL. And I kind of got attached to this idea that this JPL place sounds like a pretty cool place to work if you want to be at the premiere of what's going on right now. And that's when I learned about it.
So the interest keeps growing.
Yeah,
You end up getting a job at NASA, and you do work for that lab.
I do.
I think some of the first missions you worked on were Cassini.
That's right.
And also the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter missions,
I
right?
do, yes.
These names come up in the press regularly, like Mission Cassini reaches outer space or something like this. But for someone who's working on this, can you explain it a little bit? What are these missions about? What is the goal? How does this?
What is the goal? How does it work? What is a space mission? In fact, we're going to go even a step higher. A lot of people who know me, who are my friends, my family, when they introduce me to other people, they're like, oh my gosh, this is my friend Janelle. She's an astronaut / rocket scientist who flies spaceships to places. Like, that is super sweet of you. I am not an astronaut, and I'm not even a scientist. So let's see if I can maybe break it down into the pieces a little better. So I start off by just saying I'm a space engineer, but in more depth, when I was hired to JPL, I was given this job title that honestly, I had no idea what it meant. It was to be an instrument operations engineer. And obviously, the instruments we're talking about are not the violins and the cellos. The instruments here are the scientific instruments that are supposed to answer questions about the places that we go. So then you have this other part, the operations engineer. What in the world is that about? Well, when we talk about space missions, you come up first with an idea, and you can call this the mission. I want to go to the Europa moon of Jupiter because it may be host to life. It is an ocean world in our solar system. This is the mission concept. I want to go to this place. How do you get there, though? Maybe you understand that you want to be able to analyze the chemicals on this moon, or you want to be able to image it. That's the scientific instruments that you have to build and create to do that job. But you can't just take a bunch of instruments and then throw them in the air and they get there somehow. You need a vehicle, something that's going to, one, take you from point A to point B, but two, keep you alive and happy during that trip, which is not an easy job when we're talking about the vacuum of space. It can get very hot. It can get very cold. You can be bombarded by random radiation bursts of the universe, and you have to be ready for that as a spacecraft. So the spacecraft's your vehicle. The scientific instruments are answering all the questions. And as the operator, it is your job after the launch of that launch vehicle, or the rocket, we like to say, you are released. The rocket's gone. It's done its job. And now it's up to you and your team to operate this spacecraft and get it where you're trying to go from a room like the Mission Control Center, which people are normally familiar with when they think, Houston, we've got a problem. Those people sitting in the room with the headsets on, looking at all of those displays, trying to figure out the answer to the questions, plan the next activity. That's my job as an operations engineer.
That sounds super cool. And it's kind of hard to picture all the things you're dealing with on a daily basis. I'm sitting here interviewing you, and your mind is probably somewhere out there thinking like, okay, my mission right now is there. I need to make sure that tomorrow it doesn't hit an asteroid or something like that. It's kind of like a different world.
Yeah, well, thankfully, it's a world where we have been doing this as a humanity for so long that we have so many best practices that we learned from the Apollo days that still matter and work to this day. And your job as an operator is to prepare. It is to be the ultimate prepared person. You always expect for things to go wrong, and you prepare for that case, not the case where everything just works and you're just sitting back and you're watching and there's nothing to intervene or do.
You called it the big vacuum of space.
Yeah.
We have no idea what's out there. How do you prepare for what you don't know?
Well, you prepare for one, what you do know. You do know about the things that I mentioned, that if you were to just take your phone and strap it to a spacecraft and call that your camera, it's not going to survive the journey. It is too hot. It is too cold. It is not radiation protected. So you do know some things about space that are very predictable. You know that the giant antennas that we use that are placed all around the world to communicate with these spacecraft that are going far, far away, you know that some days it's gonna rain at that location, or there could be fires. I actually experienced that once on a project. There could be fires. The antenna can go down or become unavailable. What do you do then? So you know that some things are possible because they've happened. And in fact, many space companies, and NASA in particular, has a huge library of what we call lessons learned. Why continue to make the same mistakes? Write them down, read them, and avoid them next time by being prepared.
How would you summarize the Cassini mission?
The Cassini mission, it was my very first space mission. When I joined the team, I had no idea how special of an opportunity that was. Cassini launched in 1997 when I was 3 years old. So my knowledge of the inception of Cassini and this big lead up to its launch, I wasn't there for it. So I can't say I connected with it in that way. But when I joined, it was for a different exciting time. Cassini was at the end of its life. These spacecraft are operated by people like me. If you leave them to their own devices, they will eventually degrade and not be able to take care of themselves. So you have to be responsible. And there's actually international law about keeping places pristine for the next person who wants to go. So control your spacecraft. So when I joined this mission, it was at the end of its life. The scientists had kind of gotten together saying, well, what do we do now? We're running out of fuel. And if you run out of fuel, you cannot do any corrections to your orbit. And essentially, you've just injected space junk into the world that you can't stop it from doing what it's going to do next. So we need a plan. They thought about these ideas like sending Cassini far beyond Saturn and turning it into like a Voyager-esque type of mission. And Voyager, for those who may not know, has been around for decades, and we're still communicating with it after it's left our solar system and it's running on less power than your hair dryer. Crazy. So I was like, maybe we can make a part 2 to that. Then they said, or, you know that space between Saturn and its rings, if you're imagining the planet right now, they said, we can dive our spacecraft between Saturn and its rings and go where no one's gone before. That space, is it truly empty? Is there something there? The thinking, the planning that the engineering team did to make this work was just incredible. They described using Cassini's high gain antenna, that giant dish that you see on these, especially old school spacecraft, as like a shield, like Captain America's shield, because they didn't know what was in the gap. So maybe they had to protect the spacecraft by putting that in first. Oh man, really cool planning. But that is where I learned how to be an operator, from people who were experts, who had been around since its inception, who had grown up, had kids, those kids grew up, graduated from college, and they're still on this project. I learned from the absolute best how to make a flagship mission like Cassini work. So it was incredibly special for me to see it end too.
For any kid that's like dreaming on space work, what you're describing now sounds like their dream. You made it. You're at NASA, you're working on missions like Cassini.
Yeah.
Comes a day you decide to leave that behind and move to Japan.
Man.
Why?
I never imagined that I was going to leave that place. The NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory is so special, and it's still special to me today. You're surrounded by these engineers who are so kind, yet so smart. I mean, these are people who are leading experts in the things that they're doing, and they're so open and ready to talk about it with anyone who's excited to listen. They're just passionate about what they do. And so
I can hear it.
Yeah, I guess I'm one of them. I'm an alum. So I never imagined coming to Japan. I did go on vacation to Japan a couple years prior to making the decision to move just for fun, because I was like, I'm an adult. We're allowed to take trips without someone else telling us to. So I came for like 10 days, had the time of my life, came back and thought nothing more of it, to be honest. But one day I got a cold call message on LinkedIn that was like, hey, we think that you would be a great fit for this position we have open called like a flight director. And you would be a flight director for our maiden mission to try and land on the moon. We are located in Tokyo, Japan. Let us know if you're interested for the interview. I thought that this was a scam, because why in the world would another country be reaching out to me of all people? You've got to realize that at a place like JPL, 5 years, 4 years into your career, you are a baby. You know nothing compared to the people who are around you. So why would they say something like this? Flight director, by the way, at NASA, decades of experience. It does not go to somebody who is 27, 26. But I decided to interview because the idea of it sounded cool, at least. And when I got the job, I was completely unprepared for the mental gymnastics of how to decide to leave my dream job for this unknown thing. And so I actually turned it down the first time around. And I sat on the idea for a year because it had started to get into me that I could move to another country and I could have this really cool position where I'm going to have way more responsibility, but I'm going to learn more and I'm going to be uncomfortable, but I'm going to be challenged to that uncomfortability and learn from it. And I decided in the end, what better time than now to try out something like this? NASA is not going to disappear if I leave. It's still there. And I reached back out to the manager and said, you know what? I'm in.
So a year later, after declining,
Yeah.
you take the job, you take the opportunity, and you leave your position where you just described you're a baby still in the scheme of experience of people at NASA,
Yeah.
to suddenly take the lead on some new missions from a company based here in Japan.
That's right.
What was it like moving here, arriving here, and suddenly kind of joining a completely new mission in a different country, different language, different culture?
In the beginning, a lot of apprehension. I mean, I landed in Narita. This was right after they opened the borders for people with work visas. I had been waiting for 1 month. I am very lucky because I had coworkers who had been waiting for years to have the chance to finally move to Japan. I got there. I'm placed in this hotel, like in the middle of nowhere. I'm thinking to myself, what have I done? But also excited about meeting everybody for the first time in person after being a contractor for a little bit there. I come into the city like, this is real. And once I met my team, I had like this huge like relief because I had done my research. I didn't just make the decision, and it wasn't just thinking about an idea. I was on YouTube. I was watching all of the channels. I was like, tell me the real stuff. I want to know the real Japan, not the, vacation mode Japan or the idealized Japan of Pokemon and anime and all this kind of stuff. Tell me what it's actually like. And so I was prepared for that. Turns out my company is very much a unicorn, in my opinion, in that it has very much Western ideals, even though it is a Japanese company. And I think it makes it even stronger for that because the company, I think at this point or at some point in the last few months, it's like 65% or so foreigners, more foreigners than Japanese workers, actually. And I think that the managers, the CXOs, the leadership really sees value in bringing people from all around the world to work on problems that challenge the world. It makes total sense that you'd want a diverse set of perspectives and experiences across the board if you want something like this to succeed. It is a first in many ways to try and land on the moon as a commercial company, completely funded independently, privately, no government support. It's on your own. Let's do this from an idea.
So that company, iSpace,
Yeah.
What is it trying to achieve?
Well, iSpace's long-term vision from our CEO, Hakamada-san, is to essentially have something called, he likes to call it like the Moon Valley. It's an idea that one day we can become so proficient at getting to the moon that we can have an ecosystem there. An ecosystem that allows for things like astronauts being able to stay longer term, being able to test out new technologies that allow us to take the resources available at the place and turn them into something useful for us while there, being able to use the moon as a stepping stone to go onwards to Mars. There are so many things that you can do at the moon and things that you can explore from the moon that the idea is just to be a part of that ecosystem as it blooms.
Whenever you talk about all these space-related things, like the various space movies I've seen kind of come to mind, I'm thinking, what was it? Ad Astra with Brad Pitt? Where he's like basically they have stations on different planets, and each of them helps them to go to the next one and further away until he's like stuck somewhere very far. But that's kind of the idea, kind of build the first base, so to say.
Start somewhere.
And you're now there as a flight director. So what, can you explain what you do?
Yeah, I would say I kind of have like two different roles. The flight director is what I'm called when I am sitting on console, headset on. That's how I am addressed, flight for short. When I'm not sitting on console, I'm a senior mission operations engineer. These two things are very related. Basically, when I'm not on console, I'm working on all the things offline that we need to take care of for preparing for any activities that are upcoming, running simulations of things to make sure that they work, and even building from the ground up all the tools that we use in that room to make sure that everything is as we expect. We have this concept as test as you fly. So before you ever get into space, the idea is that you should have high confidence because all of the tests that you performed are going to be done the same way you do them on the day it happens. So for example, doing the injection into lunar orbit that's coming up, super exciting. This is not something we're going into like, oh, we need to figure this out for the first time. How are we going to do this? This is something we've rehearsed. We understand. We made a plan far before we ever launched. Now we're at the part where we're executing. And that's when the flight director hat comes in. I think that being a flight it is a job that you don't know if you're cut out for it until you just do it. There is no training in the world that can prepare you for the feeling you have when you stand on console and it's just you, a room full of engineers who are putting their trust in you, and the spacecraft. That's what it is. And you as flight are the ultimate responsibility for everything that happens in real time during those operations. That means if something goes wrong, they call to you, flight, to make the final decision on how to move forward, which means you need to be able to work very clearly, logistically, in very time-pressured, high-stakes scenarios when sometimes cameras are on you with hundreds of thousands of people watching to see what happens next. You cannot let those things faze you, because if you do, you go into panic mode and you become reactionary. You don't go into the mode where you think ahead of what is the best thing and the best way forward and what are the questions I should be asking to make sure I'm making the right decisions.
When we reached out to you, we were looking for a suitable date for you to come, and you were like, sorry, next week we're launching space, something into space. I need to be on deck.
Yeah.
When you're in that room there for launch, what are you thinking about?
Unreal. It's unreal. Launch day is something that you just do not forget. The launch itself is really not so much on us. The launch, the leaving planet Earth and getting to what is called space, that is done by the launch provider. You pay somebody who has a rocket and who can put you where you ask to be put with a certain type of precision or accuracy. You pay them to get the job done. When you're on that rocket, your job as a company is to make sure your spacecraft can even survive that launch. It's like being strapped to a bomb. You are going to feel so much shaking. It's a rough and wild ride, so your spacecraft has to be able to survive just that alone. Then, after the rocket reaches the required destination and deploys you, which we saw in the live stream, our baby just separate from that Falcon 9, going into deep space. Unreal, by the way. It's all on YouTube. You gotta go watch it back and like, oh, so amazing. You watch it go away and instantly our job kicks in. The rocket's gone, it's done. They're not doing anything for you. It's just you and the spacecraft and your training now. And the team that we had on that initial critical operations, that's what we call it, or ICO, their job is just to communicate. First, get that first communication from the spacecraft. Second, make sure it is sun pointing and charging. If you're not sun pointing and charging, and if you cannot communicate, your mission can be over before it even starts. These first few hours of a mission are make or break. And you can imagine for a company doing it for the first time, you have no idea. You can do all the testing on the ground that you want to do, but space is different. You just don't know until you try. It's very important to just move forward and try, or else you're never going to know what's broken or what doesn't work or what you have to improve. But our mission 1 was really fantastic for our very first mission. And the team that handled that and the team that handled it again for mission 2 was so prepared, ready for any scenario. The telemetry came in, we got that first contact, and they were directly in that mode. I had shivers. I had tears.
I'm getting shivers.
I really had to hold it in because I was just so proud of what our team executed and how well they did it. Our spacecraft controller, we have multiple positions in the room. The flight director, who everyone, speaks through, who's like the orchestrator or the composer, or I don't know how to say, the person in the orchestra who's telling everyone what to do. They're doing their role, but everyone else is doing their role too. They're looking at all of this data, and it's hundreds and hundreds of different packets of data coming in, telling a story. It's not the spacecraft saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. It's you figuring it out. And we have a spacecraft controller who, she's so young, so bright, so brilliant, who's just focused. Oh man, I could talk about my team forever because of how proud I am of them.
Well, I want to talk about your team because you moved away from NASA, the leading space agency in the world, to work in an international team here based in Japan. The way space exploration is approached or discussed in the United States is perhaps quite different than here in Japan.
Yeah.
How is it for you now working with Japanese engineers and a team that also involves a lot of people, maybe from also different cultural backgrounds, that are trying to do private space missions? Are the goals different? Can you tell me about it?
Yes, there are some really big differences from the United States coming to Japan. Even though I've never had the private experience in the States, I have tons of friends who've worked in the private industry. I still do now. Coming to Japan, first, I realized that I can work with people from other countries. It's not impossible in the States. It's not impossible. There are ways, there are specific visas, the green card, the sponsorship. There are ways, but it is exceedingly rare to be working alongside non-Americans, specifically in the role that I have, spacecraft operations. I came to a team that's made up of people from Belgium, Hong Kong, Thailand, Brazil, Mexico, Italy, France, Japan, of course. I mean, Spain. If I didn't say Spain, I would be in so much trouble because the official language of our mission control is Spanish because of how many people from Spain we have on the team.
Seriously?
Yes.
The official language of a Japanese space mission is Spanish.
Official, not official language. It's just incredible to be surrounded by that much diversity in terms of nationality. And I never thought I'd get to experience that because of how strict the laws are in America about the types of nationalities that can work on this aspect of missions like this.
For national security reasons, I imagine.
That's
and
correct.
Like, keeping data
data safe, because unfortunately the same technology that can take you to the moon, it can take you to Mars and all these exciting places to learn very interesting things for humanity, is the same technology that can also send a missile to another country. So America's very careful about that, and they're still careful about it here with Japan too. And we have to go through all of the legal avenues to make sure we do things the correct way, that we do not export technology to places that we are not allowed to. But just the fact that this company is set up in a way where we can work alongside each other is super special and unique and something you'd never find in America.
You mentioned in Japan it's also regulated. The Japanese space agency called JAXA is basically the NASA of Japan, if I may say so, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me how this operates? What are Japan's space missions in general? How different are they from the US?
I've never worked at JAXA, so I don't know too much about exactly what they do, even though I should learn. The cool thing is I've actually gone to visit them in scuba, because for iSpace's second mission, we actually integrated or put together the lander in their facility. So I got to go see our lander getting built, which I never saw the first lander. You just imagine all I see is its data after it's in space. So that was a super cool experience.
So the lander is this thing here we can see on the patch, right?
That's correct.
Well, it's probably not visible on camera, but
yeah, maybe not.
we can add photos, or the photos are on the website.
Yeah, there you go.
People can see it there.
Yes.
So you got to see this being built at the Tsukuba University Space Lab?
Not the Scuba University Space. It may be actually called that. I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's called that.
I'm not sure the official name. I just know it's in Scuba and it's owned by JAXA. They have a cool museum that's there for the public as well. If you live in Japan and you are interested in this kind of stuff, you can actually look into visiting it one day. But I got to actually go there, and we got a tour actually of their mission control facilities, and they talked to us for a bit about how their missions run. And it was very, very cool to have that experience because I've never seen any other space company besides JPL that up close and personal. And this happens to be one from another country, and it's JAXA. People know JAXA. JPL did missions that were jointly with JAXA. And it's interesting how similar and dissimilar things are. When I think to the JPL campus, for example, that's located in Pasadena, California, sunny California. Think Los Angeles sun. It's on the background of these mountains, beautiful landscape. And when you come into work, you could be getting coffee next to this dude wearing a Hawaiian t-shirt and some flip-flops and find out he's the chief engineer of the lab. And that's just the kind of feeling you get walking around JPL. It feels very similar to a college campus in that you can have the purple hair, the pink hair, and it's all good.
So the stereotypes we see in movies are true.
It's true. That part at least is true. Let your individuality shine. At JAXA, I definitely got the impression, my brief impression, that it's more of a corporate feel, which there's nothing wrong with that, and less of a, open experience to the public. Whereas at JPL, we had tours coming in nonstop, essentially, because the idea is your taxpayers are allowing this to be possible. So let's show you what your money is actually doing. Taking people into the clean rooms where the spacecraft are getting built, or over to the Mission Control Center so you can see where the magic happens. I don't think that JAXA affords that opportunity, but they may do it in other ways because I know that they have many campuses. One of them is actually near our office in Nihonbashi. So again, I don't know all of it, but I guess back to your original question about what is JAXA doing and how is it different or maybe the same. JAXA actually had a mission last year called SLIM, where they also were sending a lunar lander to the moon. And they also were able to land, I think we call it or characterize it as a hard landing, because they managed to land upside down, which that is still an accomplishment.
I remember that was in the news, right? They thought it was crashed or something like that. And then they were like, no, it's actually there. It's just got it upside down.
Yes, they were able to get communication still. They were able to deploy their rover called Sora, I believe, which we actually had their payload on our mission one, also called Sora. And it's this little ball that essentially can be like a toy, and it rolled around. It actually took a picture of them.
It's like BB-2 in Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's the orange and white one, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I haven't watched Star Wars.
But I may have said the wrong name of the robot, actually. I don't know.
I don't know. But that exact concept, and they were able to take a picture, send it back to Earth. That is an accomplishment of itself, because if you want to ask anyone how difficult this stuff is, you can ask me. It is hard. But yeah, JAXA is very much active. They are also in the rocket game. I believe right now they have the H3 rocket. And I've even seen out and about in Tokyo them showing the work that JAXA is doing. I don't know if it's just chance, but across the street from where I work, I saw it on a giant billboard type screen of them showing this rocket getting built and talked about. It's really cool stuff. So JAXA is alive and well, but I think also the European Space Agency and these other space agencies run around the world, they don't have as much attention as NASA. So sometimes their own people don't even know what it is. I've interacted with people in Japan who have no idea what JAXA is, or I'm giving them new information.
Oh, wow.
And that's another big difference between America and here. In America, everyone knows NASA. In fact, worldwide, I'd say that most people know what NASA is, but JAXA is not as well known or famous. I'm not sure what is the secret sauce to change that for the others, but I do think that a lot of it has to do with branding, which, by the way, JAXA has great branding for its missions. They make them very cute. You can interact on Twitter.
There has to be a mascot.
There has to be a mascot, but they don't just allow anyone to take their logo, put it on a shirt. In America, you can go to Walmart and get a NASA shirt.
You have a t-shirt.
I have a
that says
t-shirt.
NASA.
This one actually did come from JPL. A friend brought it when he came to visit Tokyo not too long ago. So it's like, oh, thank you very much.
Very nice.
But yeah, you can get them from anywhere.
I want to get back to the missions you work on.
Yeah.
And we talked about the launch day. I'm curious, if you actually go back in time, you mentioned all the prep that goes into this.
Yes.
So if launch day is day T,
Mm-hmm.
how far back do you have to go when the mission starts? When you go back to what you were saying earlier, someone has an idea like, oh, I want to check this thing on that planet.
Yes.
If you consider this a start, from that start to launch day, what time period are we talking about?
It totally depends on the scope of your mission. You got to ask yourself, how much can I borrow from missions that are similar, but I'm just tweaking this one thing to make a difference? If I can take a lot that's already been done, then maybe your time frame from beginning of idea to launch day is a few years, a couple of years. Maybe it's only 1 year, especially if it's the type of satellite that can be mass produced. But what you get on each new mission is maybe a different science instrument, a different story to tell because we've advanced the technology. Maybe the cameras have gotten better, the spectrometers have gotten better, the radiometers have gotten better. So you're doing like a slight upgrade, but everything else is almost exactly the same. Then you have these missions that are pushing the frontier. Never been done before, never tried this before. So you've got your work cut out for. You are not taking a guidebook from someone else and going through it and just changing line 3. You are writing the guidebook yourself. If you're talking about this, the startup, just from beginning to end, it can be a decade. And that's what you see a lot at these private companies. You've got to start from somewhere, but if you're starting without a solid base or heritage like these legacy places like NASA have, then you have a lot of work cut out for yourself. But once you start getting going, then you have that reliability, you have that heritage, and then the next mission doesn't take quite as long.
Hard to fathom, like the scale of things here.
Yeah.
I'm curious about how did iSpace get started? You mentioned it's not supported by the government, it's completely private. It's one guy's dream to build a moon valley.
I'm not the best historian of iSpace lore. My start of iSpace actually came from MIT. I realized this after the fact, but there was this competition called X Prize. And in my very first aerospace course, besides the introductory, my first engineering, I would say, course in aerospace engineering, it's called Unified Engineering. And the professor brought up the fact that private space companies are starting to exist. What a crazy concept. I mean, space has been run by governments because of just the sheer budget you need to have in order to even do anything. It's not the same as other industries where you can start it in your garage and that's all you really need.
Can you give a ballpark? Let's say you have a mission and you want to send a Land Rover to the moon. Like, what are we talking about?
A ballpark is really good. I mean, you can have missions that are the size of a microwave now. They're called CubeSats. You may have heard of them. Universities often allow their students to design a CubeSat, maybe even manufacture one and get it sent to space. The key is in the cost is how much does it cost to take however many kilograms you have worth of stuff on that rocket and send it there.
So, for example, you attach it here to the top of a SpaceX rocket,
Yeah.
and you pay them to launch
Yes.
X kilos into space.
Yes. Now that cost is probably the thing that stops people who just have an idea in their garage from ever materializing it into anything. It's quite expensive to launch something in space, but in today's day, it is nowhere near as expensive as it used to be. You can think of it like we have airplanes, right? Imagine if after every flight, everyone jumped off the plane and then it rolled into the ocean. And then you got to get a new plane for another flight. You didn't reuse them. Reusable rockets have made it much cheaper because you don't have to build everything all over again. And so the price is much more within reach for organizations and people who it may not have been in the past. And just like with planes, they did not start out affordable either. The everyday person could not hop on the first planes that were invented.
For sure.
It was funded essentially by people who could afford it. And these people are often rich or come from a well-off family, and they had the luxury of taking these first flights. But because they were able to pay, and because they had interest, and because they did pay, they gave money to an industry that eventually became accessible for everyone. And I feel like we're in that age right now with space. Right now, it may leave a bad taste in people's mind to think, well, they're saying that space is more free and more open for everyone, more affordable, but how is millions of dollars affordable to me? It's not, right? But the reality is it is affordable to some now, whereas it was not affordable by anyone except for governments. So now that we have these lower price ranges, and you ask for a range, and it can be truly anything from, if you just want a seat on a plane as a person, from millions of dollars to hundreds of millions of dollars to a flagship mission. I mean, completely brand new, top of the line. We're doing it for the first time, like a NASA type mission, Cassini, $3 billion. And that's mainly from the fuel. And their fuel source is radioactive isotopes, or plutonium. So that alone, $1 billion just to get plutonium like that. So it really depends on the scope of your mission. What is the power source? What power source does it have to have? Because Cassini is so far away from the sun that the amount of solar panels that you would need to power it instead of plutonium, you're talking about multiple football fields. It's huge. And now imagine the cost and how are you going to fit that in a rocket? So that's why your mission concept really drives the cost. You have to really understand what is it you want to do, how you want to do it, and is there any concessions that you can make, because every little thing you add to that mission can add up in a big way.
And sometimes the missions don't always go as planned.
That's correct too.
There's one mission that happened 2023 in May, I believe, right? This is Hakuto R, which was one of the first attempts of iSpace to land a rover on the moon. Made the news as well. I read about it on CNN.
That's right. That's right.
Can you tell me about this mission? What was the challenge? But most importantly, how do you bounce back from a mission like this where you spend months preparing, it doesn't go as planned, it costs a lot of money, and you don't want to just like, okay, this is it, this is over, this is the end, right? You need to go to the next one.
Yes, of course you have to go to the next. So yes, the mission you're talking about is the mission I was hired to iSpace to do. Of course, before me, there have been many, many engineers at this company who've been taking a dream and making it reality, which is no small feat. They're taking people like me from NASA, people coming from ESA, people coming from even like military jet type of operations, universities, research, taking people from all sorts of backgrounds and experiences that are very much relevant to what we're trying to do, and saying, let's make this happen. We want to land on the moon. The reason why this is a big deal is because at this point in time, back in 2023, no private company had ever done this, ever. And you're not talking about, back in the 1960s and the Apollo missions where, one, you had humans in the loop. So the spacecraft wasn't landing itself. Humans could take over and use their eyes, use their ears instead of just sensors to land themselves. Still an incredibly hard feat to do. And also the support of the entire country. It was everyone, stop what you're doing. I don't care if you make cars. I don't care if you do this. You are going to make us get to the moon now. That was the entire country on board to make that happen. Yes, the moon race, exactly. Now we're in today, and it's just a person with an idea who gets enough people on board who share the idea, who say, yeah, we can see a future and we see where things are going. And if we can help be a part of this lunar ecosystem and prove that private companies can too do these incredible, amazing things, that'll be something. And I'm dropped into this team. It's an amazing team, get caught up extremely fast, get put on console and fast forward after the launch. And we're here in April. It actually was, what's day? Tuesday, 2 days ago today, what we call Never Quit the Lunar Quest Day, when we had our first landing attempt. I'm the flight director on that day. And if you go to the YouTube live stream, you will see me standing at my desk looking with the rest of the engineers, because what's about to happen is an autonomous sequence. Our role in it all is to prepare the spacecraft, upload all of the commands, tell it basically where we are, how fast we're going, and give it the best chance to land. This is not an easy thing to do. There are things you have to deal with while you're at the moon. When you go behind the moon, you have something called an occultation, where the moon is between you and the spacecraft, you and the antenna from Earth you're using to communicate with it. So it's basically a blackout. And in between these, you have these communication windows where you get done what you need to get done. You check all the data you need to check. You do your goes and no goes. And then the moment comes where it's the point of no return and you watch. There is no joystick. There is no one sitting on console who is flying the spacecraft. The spacecraft has its sequence, its software, and it's going to do its best with what you have given it to get the job done. We didn't know what would happen. We don't have a magic, like a genie in a bottle type of thing to understand what the future holds. But of course, all of us wanted to and hoped that we were going to land. That is the attitude you have to have. And as a flight, even more importantly, you have to come in with that kind of attitude because it permeates to everyone else. And we watched and we waited to see what would happen. And when we didn't get those initial communications and when we didn't get the results we wanted to see in the data, the immediate reaction is not, oh, mission over and, give up and walk away. Your immediate reaction as a flight director or an operations engineer is to investigate what happened. It could be this, it could be that. It's not over until we prove that it's over. After we were able to do the investigation and get to the root cause of the failure, which I'm so happy we were able to get all the data we could because we very well understood what happened. Imagine that you have the spacecraft coming in hot. We're landing in a crater. This is your approach path, the table here. You're going to come over the lip of the crater, which is the cup, and you're going to land on the other side. Maybe I do it this way for the camera. You're going to land here. As you're coming in, there's a sensor on board called a laser rangefinder. It's sending lasers down at the ground that tell you your altitude or how high you are from the ground. This is going to be essential for you to know when you're at 0 meters, right? You've reached a target. The spacecraft knows where it wants to land and where it's supposed to land. And as it's coming in hot, it's getting these readings of this many kilometers. And then it comes to this point, and it's much shorter than it was expecting. What a big change from here to here. There are no humans on board to say, yeah, that's the lip of the crater. There's no one to tell the spacecraft what it is seeing. The spacecraft has to make decisions on its own. And the spacecraft decided that since all it has is data, this data must be bad. And it threw this data, and it actually accepted this data at first. And then it said, so the distance became smaller, that it came over the lip and the distance got way bigger because now we're in the crater. And it said, okay, we came from here to here to here. I'm not accepting what you're telling me now because it doesn't really match up with the confidence I had earlier about how close to the ground we were. So it rejected those measurements, those correct measurements. It rejected them. And then it tried to land where it thought the ground was, which is not where the ground was. It was higher than where the ground was. And it awaited to see that it had touched the ground, get those vibrations, that shock. And when it didn't happen, it eventually ran out of fuel and it fell. And we actually saw all of this in the telemetry. And I think there's a very great explanation from our CTO on YouTube that goes into the depth of these readings and what we were able to discover from these. But it was like, wow. Okay, we understand what happened. Mission 2 is around the corner. We're already going for it. It was already part of the plan. You think one mission is all it takes to be successful in space? It doesn't matter if we did land that one. We have to be reliable. We have to be repeatable. We have to be able to know that we are using the best practices and we are improving every time to make sure future missions succeed too. And so we took all of the things that we learned, not just from the landing, but everything else too. And we're immediately applied that to the second mission. And if you were to ask anyone on my team, you can feel the difference. It's been incredible. You can tell there were seasoned veterans of this spacecraft, which is very much like a twin of the previous one, with tons and tons of upgrades in order to prevent what happened before. So very hopeful.
I'm
very
trying to relive that
excited.
experience and how tense that must have been to be in that control room and
Very.
it's not responding, and then you just see it's floating up where it's supposed to be landing. And
Yeah.
is this a kind of situation where now new technologies like AI are kind of also coming in and will be implemented into these spacecrafts to maybe read the data differently and kind of...
I mean, AI is just a different word on top of the same concept. Software making the decision for you. It doesn't matter if you use AI or not. It's about, is the underlying algorithm going to be better than a person deciding? Are we good? Are we not good? At the end, that's the core of it. Machine learning, artificial intelligence has been around for a long, long time. And even before I left JPL, we were just talking about how we could use it to make the operator's life just a little better. And one of the great examples we came up with, I talked about how what we get from the spacecraft is data. We call it telemetry or health and safety packets that tell us things like the currents and the temperatures and the error codes, all the information that you need to know to understand how your lander or your spacecraft is performing. We have all this data and we make the displays that you see when you think of the Mission Control Center. The plots, the timelines, the colors, if it's green, if it's yellow, if it's red, what do those mean in the context of this subsystem that tells us about the orientation of the lander, or in this subsystem that tells us about the propulsion system and the firing and the health of the thrusters? We have to tell a story with that data. It's on us because we have to be the ones who can spot when something is not going as expected. We thought about how you can use machine learning or artificial intelligence to learn like an operator and being able to spot how little differences may be a warning for what is to come. We look at data all the time that you may become a little numb to slight shifts or changes, or it could be the opposite, depends on the operator you are. And maybe machine learning could play the role of saying, hey, this data, we've been getting it for 30 days, but today it looks like just a little bit different. Maybe it's worth taking a deeper look. I think that's super useful. Is using it as a tool, not using it in lieu of using our own minds, our own algorithms, our own thinking to figure out how to do something well.
The goal of that mission was also kind of a new race to the moon as a private company to kind of land there.
I don't know if I've actually ever heard, well, also I don't.
Well, I said race, but basically to be the first.
To be the first. I mean, these attempts didn't start with us. There have been private space companies before us who have also attempted to land on the moon years ago. So I wouldn't say you can compare it to kind of like the space race where everyone in the world was locked in essentially saying we need to go, 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 succeed at all costs. It's not so much that way. And another difference I see is the fact that we truly cheer each other on. I mean, after that first mission, we were invited to, and we attended the International Astronautical Congress, or IAC, a big conference in the aerospace industry. And if I butchered the name, please forgive me. I'm sorry. I know it by acronym. And we had a chance to share our story of the first mission, and the amount of people who came up to me who said, you know, I worked on a project. We also tried for the landing on the moon. I totally relate to your experience, and it feels, you know, just really special to be able to share that with someone else who truly understands the difficulty, the challenge. I mean, the Firefly mission that successfully soft landed on the moon earlier this year, we watched it. We watched it from the Mission Control Center. It was incredible. It's like you're there with them. You feel the pressure with them, even though you're not directly involved in that project whatsoever. It's like you want people to succeed, because for every success, you are opening the space up and making it more possible again and again. If there's a first, that means there can be a second, and that means there can be a third and a fourth and a fifth. And the confidence in the industry that these small players can get the job done grows exponentially.
With a private company like this attempting such a feat here in Japan, do you feel like it's also restarting or emphasizing the conversation about space exploration here in a country where you mentioned some Japanese people don't know much about JAXA, or at least not as much as NASA is known worldwide, and especially in the United States?
I hope so. I am one of those foreigners living in Japan that doesn't know Japanese. So I do not watch the news to be able to say how the public has truly reacted. But what I can say is it's been really interesting and fun to hop in a taxi and see a commercial for iSpace come across the video screen. It means that the information is getting out there and more people are learning that space is alive and well in Japan. And I've been on various panels since I've moved here, and I've learned crazy things. Like there's apparently like 80 plus private space companies in Japan.
Wow.
Now, not all of them are trying to send something to space. Some of them are more interested in the data that we can get from space and doing something with it using technology on the ground. But that's saying something. And it shows me, or it tells me that, you know, space is coming to the forefront. And with actually our third mission in Tokyo, Japan, led by the Japan office, it'll be our fourth mission overall, we got funding from the government. So the government is now invested in the success of this company, which is really saying something.
Does Japan, I mentioned Cape Canaveral before, which is like one of the iconic launch pads in the United States.
Yes.
Does Japan have its own as well, where they launch
Yes.
rockets from?
Yes. I wish I could remember the exact region, but it's in the south, like towards the south.
Okinawa, maybe?
Not Okinawa, but more like Kitakyushu area,
Okay.
Fukuoka. I don't remember exactly where. You'd have to look it up. But in the southern area of the main island of Japan, they do have a rocket launch pad.
Interesting.
And they do launch rockets from it.
How important is international collaboration on these space missions? It seems so difficult to independently put all the pieces together.
Yes. Yeah. It is very important. I think, honestly, as cool as space is, it has a lot of cool stuff. You can talk about, oh man, like my other cars on Mars. There were a lot of people at JPL who had like bumpers on their car that says stuff like that. And it's true and it's amazing. But the thing about space is it's hard to be egotistical about the things you do in space, because it really isn't about one person. It is always and has always been about the effort of many. And even beyond that, what does it truly mean to be in space, to be doing things from space? It means that you are doing things that are without borders. Who owns space? Who owns the moon? It is kind of like the wild, wild west in terms of exploration. And it is also an opportunity for nations to work together. It is something that can bring countries that may have not otherwise found some kind of equal footing together in this drive to push humanity in one way or another. Many people don't realize that space is not just about the flashy things you hear. Space is absolutely also about your everyday life. If you think it's important for places that would otherwise have zero access to internet or Wi-Fi or cell phone service to get that access, that means you think that the satellites in low Earth orbit are important. That is the only way that these remote places are going to be able to call for help when otherwise they wouldn't be able to. If you think that GPS is important to being able to get around, you have low Earth orbit, Earth satellites to thank for that. If you think it's important for us to know when a hurricane is about to hit an area, or to know how far a wildfire has spread, then you believe in space and you believe that it's important. And there are so many missions that are all about our planet, the ways that it's changing, even if it's in real time, that are important to our everyday life. So everyone should be invested in space for that reason alone, and then all the possibilities that can come from venturing even further.
A big part of your work outside of iSpace is speaking at schools, motivating the younger generation to get interested in space.
That's right.
Can you tell me about that work and why it's important to you?
It's important for all the reasons that I said. I think that it's an easy sell to get a kid excited about space. Space is cool for all the reasons we've been talking about so far. But it is possible to make space sound boring.
Not today, at least. I'm hooked.
Ooh, okay,
I might change careers. Sorry.
I'm glad I'm doing a good job then. Space, people's ability to contribute to space is as vast as the universe itself. Space is not just for the people like me who wanted to become theoretical mathematicians and then fell into this instead. It's also for the people who believe that our planet deserves respect, and the places that we go in the future do too. For policymakers who are focused on making sure that we don't clutter Earth's orbit so much that it becomes unusable in the future, which would be catastrophic for people here on Earth. It matters for people who care about the environment. It matters for people who like to tell stories, because if it is just the scientists and engineers like me, maybe we don't get the story across just as nicely as somebody who's trained in effective communication skills. It's for the business people who are able to get investors to believe in efforts like this. And not just investors from the space industry, but investors who can see a future in a place like the moon. The car industry. Hey, if you're going to build a car somewhere else, why not start with the people who already know how to do it on Earth? I mean, the possibilities are endless. What are you going to eat? How are you going to grow it? Maybe we can talk to some farmers, the agricultural industry. And then all the technologies that come out of pushing the boundaries. I mean, if you can build a giant mechanical arm on the International Space Station, then absolutely we can build robotic mechanical arms for people on Earth who are amputees. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And when I go out and do these talks for students, my goal is for them to understand that they're not just looking for one type of person who's a genius, and they're not just looking for astronauts.
I think it was a very closed industry a long time ago. And there's a great movie, we briefly talked about it, Hidden Figures.
Yeah.
About 3 women that have worked as mathematicians, I believe.
That's right.
At NASA, and had a huge impact. I
Well,
don't remember
mathematicians and other engineers as well,
yes.
computer scientists.
And many more today. How has
Yeah.
this changed? How is the industry today? Is it more accessible? You mentioned your team being extremely international,
Yes.
men, women alike. From all over the world?
I think that with a lot of industries that are in the STEM field, it will take time for change to happen. However, what I've realized is the most powerful thing to inspire a more diverse look at the industry is just examples of people doing it. You can talk for forever to somebody about all the benefits of doing it this way. But having living, breathing proof, nothing beats that. In fact, I could spend time with a whole classroom and never even get into the specifics of my background, where I came from, the fact that I didn't really have those examples in my life directly, or the mentorship to just jump into an industry like this. And it doesn't matter, because they see me, they see themselves. And that connection alone, just like me and my professor, the former astronaut, is enough to turn the light bulb on in your head to say, oh, this is really possible. Like, I can do this. To me, that's the most powerful thing that can happen to inspire someone, to see it in action. That's all the proof that you need.
Have you had the opportunity to talk at Japanese schools as well? I saw you did a speech at the American school in Tokyo.
I did. I also spoke at University of Tokyo.
Wow.
That was very interesting as well. At the University of Tokyo, I actually spoke at like a freshman or sophomore, I can't remember which, like introductory coding class. And I did a lecture about how code is used in space. And looking around the room, I believe there might have been 2 or 3 female students in a crowd of maybe 30 to 40. And I could see how much that had an impact, not just on those students in particular, but on all of them. I actually even had this young gentleman come up to me and he was crying because in his mind, and I think it's not uncommon in Japan itself, there is this immense pressure to just be the perfect version of you, to not have any room for error, for mistakes, for bad grades, for indecisiveness, for not knowing yourself at such a young age. There's this pressure to just get it right, to land the job right out of college, to already reach your dreams, and anything less than that is just straight failure. And when he heard my story, because I always give some kind of introduction just to make me more human and not so much like this entity to look up to, he was so inspired by the fact that I wasn't just born this way. You know, I applied to JPL for the internship 3 times and I never got it. But he also heard that I never gave up. And look where I am today. I quit a job that a lot of people would call you crazy for quitting. And now I'm having far more of an experience, not just for my career, but for my life because of that big leap of faith that I made. And even if it didn't go all well, and even if it hadn't have worked out the way it did, isn't that what life is about? Just trying things for the sake of trying and really just putting yourself out there and not being so afraid by the failure, but being ready for using that failure to propel yourself forward. That message really connected with him because he felt so lost and so defeated, and as if he had no one he could talk to about not having it all together. And I'm not a person who has it all together. Ask any of my friends, I'm probably the most scatterbrained human on earth until I step into the mission control.
It's hard to imagine what's all possible out there, especially when you're a student, especially when you're a young student. You may dream of being an astronaut, but you have no idea about all the other jobs that are related to space that you could be doing if you see someone, a role model, doing it before you. Spending your time working in outer space, so to say, how has it made your perspective on life on Earth change?
It's a really deep question. It's very interesting because even though I have this job that is truly in deep space, is so far from what we do here on Earth, I feel like my life on Earth is a different thing. When I clock out of work, it's like my brain also clocks out too, in a way.
And suddenly you're in Japan.
And suddenly I'm in Japan. And it's kind of like a running joke amongst people who work in the space industry where, you know, people come up to you and say, oh my gosh, I met a rocket scientist. And you're like, if only you knew that I did not understand why my computer was messing up and couldn't get my microwave to turn on. Oh, turns out it wasn't plugged in. We have these problems in our daily life. And as much amazing things that we're accomplishing out there, it doesn't change the fact that we are only human. And I think that missions in space remind you of just that. We are only human. We make mistakes. Things are not perfect. And there has never been a space mission in history that's been 100% perfect. That is elusive. That is a fallacy to even believe in. And any space engineer, that if you ever get to talking to one, would love to talk your ear off about all the things that could go wrong and all the things that went wrong. Those are the interesting bits because we aren't machines. We aren't fortune tellers. We don't know what's in the future. And when you bring that back down here on Earth, it makes you not panic about things that you can't control because there's always things that we will not be able to control. So if anything, in my day-to-day life, I find myself not worrying so much. I don't worry because I understand that the way that life is, the way the universe is, we're not able to make everything right. We're not able to be perfect, even if we strive for it. So I'm okay with imperfection. In fact, that's where I'm most comfortable, because that's what it means to be human.
You're currently preparing your landing. By the time this episode is going to be out, hopefully,
Hopefully, let's
touch wood,
go.
you will have successfully landed on the moon.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for this?
Well,
What are you thinking about now? Are you just going through the motions of the messages, information you need to send to the lander? Are you thinking about how to coordinate the team? Are you worried about the crater that you're going to fly over again, and how the data is going to communicate and how to adjust this time around?
so honestly, you prepare for these huge events the way that you prepare for the mundane. It all comes down to process, people, and tools and understanding. Talking about the people, it comes down to teamwork skills. These soft skills that they talk about in school are important to have, or maybe to list in the resume. You don't really get it until you experience how important they really are. Being able to be the rock for others on your team to lean on, especially when you do get the jitters, because how can you really, realistically, be super calm and unbothered when you're about to do something so incredibly amazing? You do feel a little scared, maybe, a little anxious, maybe. Of course, no one wants to let it show, but I think something that our team does well is we smile through it all. And we even have like little nicknames for each of the different teams that come in and out of rotation. And my team is known as the Sunshine Team, because no matter what happens, we're going to do it with a smile on our face at the very least. And that positivity is very infectious. So just preparing the mind and body for what's to come is important. Then you have the other aspect, the process. Understanding back and forth, up and down, just like any other project or any other instance where you're going to do something important and you've just got this shot at it. I think back to my days when I ran cross country and track, the beginning of a race. I had a ritual. I had a necklace that I would wear. I would take it off 5 minutes before the race began. I would do my little jumps in the air. I would look back. I would come back. I have my moment. It's the same thing for these, except for instead of maybe a physical process that I'm walking through with my body, for the spacecraft and for these missions, doesn't matter what space mission it necessarily is, you go back to the checklist, the set of steps that are going to happen in this order at this time. It's like a memorization, like preparing for a play or being on stage. You know what's going to happen. You've practiced what's going to happen. You're reading your lines before the big day. Think of it that way. You're simulating. You are going again and again and giving people the most realistic experience they can have with software and hardware on the ground to mimic what we should see in flight, or the closest that we can get it to see to real flight. You're going through the motions with everybody, so that this is like taking off the training wheels and you've been riding the bike for a while now because you've been practicing so many times. And then lastly, I would say the preparation is just believing in yourself, having that moment to yourself, really just sitting down with yourself. I like to journal before any big activity, and there are many in these missions. I like to journal. I like to talk to myself. I might shoot a small video. It will never see the light of day, guaranteed. But I like to just talk out my feelings, and I like to talk out what I'm going through in my head. And when I put it on the paper, it's like it's there and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And it's just go time. So that's what's going to go into something like this landing, something like this lunar orbit injection. And I have great confidence in our team.
I'm sure it's going to all be live streamed, so we will be able to see or have seen this on YouTube and wherever that video is going to be shared. If you think far away into the future and you could design your own mission to answer one question about space, what would you like to know the answer to?
This is a really good question. I wish I was a scientist because scientists come up with the craziest, amazing ideas. And I love being in the room with them because they will legit have a fight over clouds. And I'm like, I don't understand what the difference is between this cloud and this cloud, but I'm just happy that you're passionate about it and it means something to you. But when I think about something I want to learn or want to be a part of or want to have some kind of role in, my mind really always comes back to how can space serve us in a meaningful way. We have had so many missions that are all about our planet and understanding the ways that it changes. But my mind immediately goes back to one of the last projects I worked on at JPL called the Multi-Angle Imager for Aerosols, or Maya, which is a mouthful. But basically what Maya is and what it was is this scientific instrument that's going to be on a spacecraft that will take measurements of particulate matter. You can think of as these microscopic particles that when we breathe in, infiltrate our bodies, go into our lungs, and can cause serious harm to human health. They come from varied sources and they're present all around the world. And this mission's goal is to observe different targets on Earth, which are essentially cities, hub of activity, hubs of humans in their lives at the same time every day so that we can better understand and pinpoint where these particles may be coming from in that local environment and how policy can it'll inform policy to hopefully help us understand how to stop it from hurting people. Environmental factors is in the top 5 reasons for people's death worldwide. So to be a part of something like that, that's really looking at why are people dying and how can we help that not be the case? Why is the earth dying and how can we help that not be the case? And finding a way with new technology to make a serious impact in that way, I would love to be a part of.
I did not expect that answer. I was ready for something like, I want to know what's inside the black hole, or I want to find life in outer space.
That's cool too.
But what's great about your answer is that this is not the kind of thing we think about when people discuss space exploration and space travel and sending rockets out there, especially in the media.
Yeah.
So maybe something to think about for people, that space research, space engineering is not just about the biggest, fastest rocket,
Right.
but about also finding ways to make things better here. And as you said multiple times, also making sure we respect the space out there and not leave too much debris, which I think has been becoming a pretty big problem that's maybe not talked about so much. A lot of satellites flying around out there might be making our skies a little darker. Another problem to solve.
Actually, a lot brighter if you ask any astrophotographers or astrophysicists who need to look up at the night sky to see what's out there. The amount of satellites make it so bright that it's hard to differentiate these man-made objects from stars. Really interesting.
I have many more questions. I think we could keep on drifting far away.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would have liked to share today that maybe we didn't get to, that I didn't ask about, whether it's about one of your missions or a message you would like to share with people who are interested or considering working in space, or maybe specifically here in Japan?
It's a really good question. I think so. This podcast is called Unpacking Japan, right? I would have never believed in a million years you couldn't have paid me that I would be working on a mission like this in a place like this. It's such a unique opportunity to be able to live your dream in a career of your choosing in a country as beautiful, as great as Japan is. And I know that you've had many, many guests on this show who I'm sure have talked about the amazingness of this place and what makes Japan truly special. And I think that not enough is said about how grateful I really am to be put in this position. It's not an entitlement. I remind myself every day that I got here by chance. If I hadn't opened my LinkedIn in time, if I had not gone to that introductory class, if my mom and dad hadn't just encouraged me to be curious, even if they didn't have the background to boost it up or to tell me or to direct me on a path, if my life didn't fall in place the way that it did, I wouldn't be able to sit here on this podcast with you today talking about how incredible it is to work in space. So I think the message that I would like to leave is that if you feel like at this point in your life it's too late for you, or this is an incredible story, but it's my story and it couldn't be a story for someone like you, it's just a reminder that I've never had it all figured out. I'm a flight director. I'm probably one of the most organized people on earth when it comes to the workplace. But when it comes to actual life, I'm just a person. And the fact that I've gotten here, to me, is a combination of luck, a combination of hard work, and an amazing support system along the way. If you give it your best, if you give it your all, you have no idea how far that you can go. And I always tell the students I talk to that not even gravity can hold you down. And I truly believe that.
Janelle, thank you so much for coming, for sharing your story and your passion. We'll make sure to leave all the links in the description so people can reach out to you if they have more questions, if they want to see more things. And we'll also link maybe a place where they can watch the mission you're currently working on and see the landing.
That would be awesome.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching. This was Unpacking Japan, and we'll be back again next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future conversations. And we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this episode, here are a couple more that we think you'll enjoy. Thanks again for your support, and we'll see you next time.